It begins with a vibration, a low-frequency tremor traveling through kilometers of solid steel, announcing a machine whose arrival is felt minutes before it is seen. These are structures of immense scale, hundreds of tons of metal and motive force engineered to haul impossible loads across entire continents. All of this mass is focused onto a contact patch no wider than a human hand, balanced on two narrow steel rails. This is the fundamental paradox of the locomotive, monumental power resting on a razor's edge. We are not exploring ordinary trains, we are analyzing mechanical outliers, engines designed to operate at the absolute limits of physics, cost, and sometimes logic itself. They are experiments in extremity. But how is an instrument of pure brute force refined into a machine of record-breaking speed? To find the answer, our analysis begins in 1936, with a locomotive built for one purpose: to conquer the speed barrier. The location, Hungary. The year, 1936. Engineers at Mavag unveiled the 242.001, a locomotive engineered to break the 152 km/h speed barrier. Its mission was pure velocity. The core of this machine was its engine. A standard two-cylinder locomotive delivers power in violent, staggered punches, creating immense vibration at high speed. The MAV 242.001 used a complex four-cylinder arrangement instead. This design balanced the propulsive forces, with piston strokes precisely offset to cancel each other out. The result was a continuous, almost perfectly smooth power curve delivered to the drive wheels. No hammer blow, just relentless acceleration. Its high-pressure boiler generated 2,300 horsepower. A piercing whistle cuts through the air, followed not by a clatter, but by the deep, confident hum of a machine in perfect balance. This allowed it to sustain speeds that outperformed many contemporary German and Italian express locomotives. A mechanical triumph. This was engineering for elegance and speed. But the next extreme demanded a machine engineered for sheer survival. In 1953, the engineering challenge was not speed, but thirst. In the vast, waterless expanse of South Africa's Karoo Desert, a different kind of extreme locomotive was forged, the Class 25. A joint project by the North British Locomotive Company and Henschel & Son, this machine was designed to conquer an environment that defeated all others. This was not an engine for records, it was an engine for survival. Its core technology was a revolutionary condensing tender. The process was a masterpiece of self-sufficiency. Exhaust steam from the cylinders, instead of venting into the atmosphere, was channeled into a vast array of radiators. Massive turbine-like fans drew in the hot desert air, forcing it over the pipes. The steam cooled, it condensed, it became water again, ready to be fed back into the boiler. The sound was a deep, monotonous hum, a mechanical heartbeat against the absolute silence of the sun-scorched earth. This closed-loop system was a lifeline. It gave the Class 25 an operational range of up to 800 miles without a water stop, enough to cross the entire Kalahari Desert. Its 4,200 horsepower was dedicated not to raw speed, but to relentless endurance. The design was so effective, Soviet engineers later studied its principles for potential use in the extreme cold of Siberia. This was a self-sufficient industrial beast, a mobile oasis weighing over 210 tons. After the brutal functionality of the Class 25, built for survival, engineers at Norfolk and Western in 1950 pursued a different kind of extreme. It was the synthesis of colossal power and absolute grace. The NNW 611, the Queen of Steam. Its mission was to create the ultimate passenger locomotive. A high-pressure boiler generated an immense 5,100 horsepower. This wasn't brute force, this was refined power, translating into a cruising speed of 140 kilometers per hour, even while pulling a full passenger train. The locomotive's design was a direct extension of its performance. A sleek, jet-black body, a single red stripe tracing its length, and the iconic bullet nose. An aerodynamic statement of purpose. It became a living legend, a machine that inspired awe long after steam's golden age. The proof of its engineered perfection came decades after its prime. During a documentary shoot, the 611 was forced to reduce speed. The helicopter filming it simply could not keep up. If the elegance of the NNW 611 was the art of speed, then the Santa Fe 5000 was the absolute embodiment of force. This is not a locomotive, it is a power plant on rails, built in 1930 with one goal: to prove the limit of power had not yet been reached. Born from the economic pressures of the Great Depression, this machine was Baldwin Locomotive Works' answer to a critical question: could one colossal engine do the work of many? The result was a singular prototype, number 5000, known to its crews as Madam Queen. Its design was was a study in pure utility. The process began at the firebox, generating steam at a pressure of 300 pounds per square inch. This superheated steam was channeled into two enormous cylinders, creating a staggering output of nearly 5,600 horsepower. Brute force on demand. To transfer this power to the rails, engineers implemented a 210 four-wheel configuration. 10 massive driving wheels gripped the track, governed by a heavy-duty spring suspension system designed to manage the locomotive's immense weight of over 500,000 pounds. Its appearance was raw and industrial, a machine of exposed steel and function, with no concessions to aesthetics. Yet for all its utilitarian mass, it could reach speeds of 110 kilometers per hour, a shocking velocity for a freight hauler of its scale. The lone prototype, a nickname inspired by blues singer Ma Rainey, became a legend on the demanding mountain routes of the American Southwest. Madam Queen proved that one correctly engineered machine could indeed replace an entire fleet, but this very idea would lead other engineers to create a true monster. The one instead of many idea was pushed to its logical and engineering absurdity in the Soviet Union in 1934. This created the AA20-1, Europe's largest steam locomotive and a monument to gigantism for its own sake. Its wheel arrangement was a staggering 4-14-4, 14 driving wheels locked into a single rigid frame, an attempt so extreme almost no one dared to repeat it. This machine was a study in brutalist scale. The frame stretched to the length of 3 modern city buses placed end to end, weighing over 260 tons. Its 7 driving axles were a fundamental engineering miscalculation. On a straight track, it was a powerhouse, but railways are not straight. The problem was physics, inevitable and unforgiving. As the steel behemoth approached a standard railway curve, its immense frame refused to flex. The focus shifts to the wheel flanges. The inner wheels lift from the rail, pulled into the air by the raw force of the unyielding chassis. A violent metallic scream erupts as tons of steel grind against the track, fighting a battle it cannot win. The locomotive lurches to a halt, deforming the very path it was meant to travel. This flaw was its curse. The AA20-1 couldn't navigate the country's own rail network. It derailed constantly on standard switches and curves. Beyond the track, its sheer size made routine maintenance an operational nightmare. The project's ambition had collided with physical reality. After a series of failed tests, the project was quietly shut down, and the unique locomotive was dismantled for scrap. While the Soviet giant AA20-1 was breaking rails, American engineers were solving a different problem, when the rails were not visible at all. To combat the snowstorms of the Rocky Mountains, a machine was created whose power was measured not in tons of cargo hauled, but in cubic meters of snow thrown. The sound comes first, a low, deep hum from the locomotive pushing from behind. Then, the roar of a separate diesel engine, 2,000 horsepower, dedicated to a single task. Finally, a high-pitched scream as spinning steel blades meet a wall of ice. This is the Union Pacific Rotary Snowplow, a 135-ton self-contained instrument of destruction. Its purpose is not traction, it is clearance. The entire machine is a platform for a massive rotor, a spinning turbine of reinforced steel. It does not just push snow, it consumes it. Steel blades grind compressed ice and snow into a fine powder, then hurl it hundreds of feet from the track. Behind it, a perfectly clean corridor appears through snowdrifts over 10 feet high, carved with brutal efficiency. This design is not an antique. It is a proven solution. Its effectiveness has not aged. During a record blizzard in Wyoming in 2011, one of these veterans was taken from storage and, in a matter of hours, cleared the entire blocked pass. The rotary plow was a genius solution to a narrow problem, but the central engineering question remained: how to give a locomotive the power of 2 machines without hitting the physical limits of a single, rigid frame? The answer arrived in 1943 from the American Locomotive Company. Its name? Challenger. The solution was not more power, but more flexibility. The Challenger was built on an articulated chassis, a design specified by its 4-6-6-4 wheel arrangement. This formula describes 2 independent engines under a single boiler, 2 sets of 6 driving wheels, each powered by its own massive cylinders, connected by a central pivot. This allowed the colossal machine to flex. A wall of black steel enters a tight mountain curve. The front engine assembly pivots on its hinge, turning independently of the main frame and rear engine. The entire 270-ton locomotive snakes through the turn, conquering a curve that would have destroyed a rigid giant. This dual-engine design produced more than 5,600 horsepower. It also created a unique acoustic signature. Not a single rhythm, it was a stereo beat. The two sets of cylinders, firing slightly out of sync, produced a deep, rhythmic double punch of sound that echoed through the canyons. This machine was built for endurance. On one run, it covered over 1,200 miles without a single mechanical failure. That is the equivalent of driving from Lisbon to Warsaw without one service stop. The Challenger united power and flexibility, becoming the largest operating steam locomotive in the world. But even it was only a precursor. It was a precursor to true titans. Machines so massive they became legends in their own right. Machines like the Allegheny H8. If the Challenger was a demonstration of power, the Allegheny H8, built in 1941, was its absolute crushing embodiment. This was the next step in evolution, a design pushing the concept of steam traction to its physical limit. Lima Locomotive Works engineered the H8 with a single brutal purpose: to haul monumental coal trains over the Appalachian Mountains. Its articulated 2666 wheel arrangement supported a power plant generating 7,500 horsepower. But that power came at a price. The sound begins as a low-frequency rumble, a vibration felt through the ground long before the engine is seen. Then, a wall of black steel fills the horizon, its pistons pounding with the force of an industrial press. This is not the sound of a train. It is the roar of a metallurgical plant on wheels, a concussive blast that makes windows tremble. The source of this destructive force was its sheer mass, 386 tons. That is the locomotive alone. Its tender carried an additional 70 tons of coal, the equivalent weight of 10 adult African elephants. The train passes, and in its wake, the steel rails themselves are left visibly deformed, demanding immediate inspection. The Allegheny H8 wasn't just moving freight, it was physically reshaping the infrastructure it ran on. Power had reached a point where it became a liability, but while engineers battled the consequences of the Allegheny's weight, a new technology was preparing not just to surpass it, but to change the rules of the game entirely, using diesel, not steam. In response to the 7,500 raw horsepower of steam, General Motors unveiled a new philosophy in 1969, a machine built not to chase the record for power, but to fundamentally redefine it. The EMDDDA40X Centennial. It was an act of technological disruption, where steam engines relied on a complex, violent ballet of pistons and driving rods. The Centennial used a more elegant solution. Inside its single massive frame, two separate V16 diesel engines roared to life, each powering its own generator. Those generators then fed electricity directly to traction motors mounted on the axles. It was two locomotives fused into one body, pure electrical force, no wasted motion. The result was 6,600 horsepower, delivered with unprecedented speed and control. The Centennial could reach 145 kilometers per hour, hauling high-priority freight across the continent with an efficiency steam could never match. This was engineering on a monumental scale. A single frame over 98 feet long, a rolling power station. The DDA40X Centennial became the most powerful diesel-electric locomotive ever built, a technological triumph that signaled the end of an era. But by the ultimate metric of raw physical presence, of sheer mass and weight, it still fell short. The title of the largest locomotive in history belonged to the final king of steam. And that record was set in 1941. To conquer the Rocky Mountains, the American Locomotive Company forged a machine whose very name became synonymous with giant: the Union Pacific Big Boy. Its purpose was singular: to haul massive freight trains over the steep grades of the Wasatch Range without assistance. And the scale of the solution was absolute. It weighed over 1.2 million pounds, the equivalent of a fully loaded Boeing 747 airliner. Its 132-foot frame was longer than the entire first flight of the Wright brothers' airplane. This was not a locomotive, it was a landmark on wheels. But how does an engine of this scale, designed for pure pulling power, achieve such speed? The answer is articulated engineering. The complex 4884 wheel arrangement allowed the colossal frame to bend, navigating tight mountain curves that would break a rigid machine. Yet on a straight line, it was brutally fast, capable of reaching 80 miles per hour, a staggering velocity for its sheer mass. Its body was coated in a deep satin black, a stark contrast to the brilliant gleam of polished steel connecting rods and brass fittings, an icon. By the late 1950s, the steam era was over. The Titans were retired. For decades, number 4014 sat as a silent, rusting hulk. Then, in 2019, a monumental restoration began. Engineers swarmed its frame, dwarfed dwarfed by driving wheels taller than a man. And then, a hiss. A cloud of white vapor. The Titan was breathing again, becoming the largest operating steam locomotive in the world. A total of 25 were built, and each one was not just a locomotive, but a monument to the engineering ambition of an entire era. From those 25 Titans to the sole surviving Allegheny, their story is not about numbers in a spec sheet. Across snow-covered mountains and through sun-scorched deserts, these were not just locomotives, they were the lifeblood of a continent. Iron arteries. They moved nations and powered entire economies, becoming icons cast in steel. The age of these giants is over. Their records are now etched in history, a testament to what is possible when ambition meets physics. They were machines, born from need, but became eternal symbols of power, ingenuity, and unyielding will.